Hello, it's Paul again, freemarriagecounselingonline.com. And today I just have a few things in my head that I just wanted to get out. I don't really have a specific topic. Oh, well, I guess I do because, I do have something on my mind that I want to talk about. But it's not like, my usual videos where I have a specific topic that I want to talk about. The other day I was watching Dr. Phil with my wife, and there was a couple on the show, and I was very disturbed about, the way this husband was describing the feelings he had towards his wife. I mean, he was talking about how he's disgusted with her, that she revolts him. He calls her names. He refuses to make love to her. He verbally abuses her. He physically abuses her. He even, makes fun of her and puts her down in front of their daughter. And she's about 4 years old. He says things like, "Don't you wish mommy was a lot thinner?" to his 3-year-old daughter. And his overall attitude towards his wife was very negative. And I was so disturbed by that. I was watching that with my wife, and I couldn't believe. I was like, wow, how can a man be so evil and so insensitive towards his wife? I mean, this is a couple that supposedly, were in love once upon a time. So much so that they wanted to get married. So how do you go from being so much in love that you can't live without each other to now being in a situation whereby you are disgusted, with the one that you supposedly once loved? It's unbelievable, some of the situations that couples find themselves in a marriage. When one spouse has now begun to abuse the other, not valuing their partner, not appreciating, not showing the love and care that they're supposed to. It is just amazing to me. And we began to wonder and think, how do people end up in such a situation? Going from loving each other so much to a point where you now hate your spouse, where you're disgusted by your spouse. How does that happen? And, I begin to wonder and think about this. And, I personally believe that it's when you start focusing on the negatives, that's when such a thing begins to happen. When you start focusing on the negatives in your relationship. Every relationship has its negative points, right? Every spouse has their negative points. Me and my wife, we have a beautiful relationship, but doesn't mean either of us are perfect. Doesn't mean our marriage is perfect. We have our issues, but we choose not to focus on the issues. We choose to focus on what's good in the relationship. Because when you start focusing on the negatives begin to magnify to a point where you don't even see the positives anymore. And then all you can see is the bad things. And then you start looking for exit clauses, and you start looking for escape routes to get out of your marriage. One of the things he was focusing on was that after she had their daughter, she put on some weight and, she wasn't as attractive. Well, that's what happens when a woman carries your baby for 9 months and she gives birth. She's not going to be exactly the same, figure that you married. But at the end of the day, is it the woman you married or the figure that you married? Because if you married the figure, then, you were just, that wasn't real love that made you commit into a marriage. You committed to a marriage based on physical attractions. And you shouldn't go into a marriage just based on physical attractions, because beauty fades. People age, things happen. What if your spouse got into an accident and they couldn't walk, or they got scarred in one way or the other? That's no reason to leave. Marriage is supposed to be for better, for worse. And people start focusing on the negative things. Love sees beyond weight and physical beauty. Love is something that it's internal, and it's supposed to be eternal as well. You're supposed to look at the inner beauty, the inner qualities of your spouse. You're supposed to look at the positives in their life. You're supposed to look at their gifts, their abilities, their talents, the things that they are good at, the way they show you love, the way they show you care, the things that they do for you. When you but what the problem is, when you focus on the negative, you stop seeing those things. And another problem is people, once they get married, they stop making the effort for one another. You know, maybe once upon a time they used to work out regularly, go to the gym. You know, they used to be concerned about the way they look. Their parents wanted to make a good impression and make sure they look good for their spouse. And all of a sudden, when you get into marriage, you stop making the effort. You know, people start taking each other for granted. You don't make, you don't show the care that you once used to. You don't make an effort to show your spouse that you love them. You stop dating. You stop going out to dinner. You stop going out to the cinema. You stop taking care of yourself. You stop looking good. You stop dressing good. And you begin to take each other for granted. Well, like, yeah, you know, she's just my wife. She's there. She'll always be there. I don't need to make an effort anymore. And you can't afford to have that kind of an attitude, because regardless of what you might think, you might take your wife for granted, but be assured that somebody out there is looking at her and thinking, wow, if only I could have a woman like that. The very thing that you no longer appreciate is the same thing that somebody else is looking at and wishing they could have. So we need to be careful not to take each other for granted. We need to be careful not to let ourselves go. We need to consistently make an effort to please one another, to show each other love and affection, to be there for one another as married couples. These are the things that make a marriage grow. Focus on the positives. Focus on developing intimacy. Focus on developing the friendship. Focus on keeping the flame of love alive. Don't let the fire of love die in your relationship. Do not let the fire of love die in your relationship. Because nobody goes into marriage thinking about divorce. You know, and I personally think that the reason a lot of people end up divorcing is because they lose track of the important things. And sometimes people don't stay committed to the vows that they made. People no longer understand what it means to be married for better or for worse. And, you know, I just wanted to, just to get out of my mind and encourage people out there, don't take each other for granted, please. And please don't focus on the negatives. Focus on the positives and not the negatives. And your relationship will be, you'll be all right and you'll be happy. So I hope you learn from that. I'm Paul Freeman.